Hi there, welcome to Bible Slash Chat, where we chat about the Bible, and today we're talking about an interesting one.
Oh,
ahead,
yes.
Jason.
The ball's in my court now. So the question is, someone asked this question, like, aren't people actually good? Right? I think that's, of course, the common secular belief, right? But does the Bible give any room for man's righteousness or goodness? How would we answer that? What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So actually you preached on this weekend, and you were
Yeah.
hammering on these texts, but I think the Bible does the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
The Bible says that apart from Christ, man is totally depraved. So
Mm-hmm.
theological language, we're completely sinful.
Right.
There's no spark of righteousness in us. There's no little 99% bad but 1% good that's reaching out for God, nothing like that. And the place where we see that clearly, most clearly, is the text that you quoted this weekend in Romans chapter 3, verse 10. Paul says, there's none righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is none who seeks for God. Not a single soul in the history of the world has ever, of its own volition, because of its own righteousness, sought after God. So what that means is that we are totally depraved. We're completely sinners. That doesn't mean we're utterly depraved, in the sense that in every way that we could sin, we do. There are lots of ways that God, in his common grace, constrains sinners. So you can still have people who love their children and who love one another and all sorts of different things that are human acts, but they're not actually righteous acts because they're always done for selfish motives. So even though we're not utterly depraved, and we're not as far as we could go. We are totally depraved, so that even our best acts are actually filthy rags in the sight of God, as Isaiah says.
And that's a really graphic passage, actually. Can't get into it here, but so you did answer the question, but maybe just to reiterate, like, people will say, "But he's a good person. Right? They do good things. Like, doesn't God kind of overlook some of the bad because of the good? Doesn't the good outweigh the bad? Like, looking at people that are not in the church, not Christians, like, what would you say to someone who says that or thinks that way?
Yeah, so two things. One is, so that whole idea of the divine scales of justice, right? Like, he's holding your life up, and he's like, does the good outweigh the bad?
Right.
So what Paul is saying in Romans chapter 3 informs us about all those good things.
Right.
Those things that appear to be good on the outside actually aren't good. Right. They actually come from evil motives. At the deepest place in the heart, they come from evil motives. And so even a person who does something that appears to be righteous on the outside doesn't actually come from a righteous motive. Right. That makes the deed itself impure. Right. And so it actually gets transferred from the good category into the bad category.
All that good
actually is in the bad category. The scale of divine justice completely weighs down on the side of evil. Right. And so that's where Paul is saying, and that's what I think the Bible teaches, is that man does have that reality is true for every human being. We are completely unrighteous. There's no part of us that seeks for God. There's no one who does what's right. There's none who is good.
Yeah. And sometimes the more righteous you appear,
the
like
worse
the Pharisees,
joke.
That's the attack. The ones Jesus pronounces woes on are not the prostitutes, the tax collectors, and the drunkards. Are the people who knew God's law, and yet didn't practice it out of a heart of love and trust in God Himself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the condemnation of Romans chapter 2, right? He says you think that you're better than them, but in judging them, you do the same things. He says you guys are actually much worse. You're hypocrites. Yeah. So your external forms of righteousness are actually just compounding your unrighteousness. Yep. The depth of their sin.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, totally.
Hope that helps you and just fills out a greater understanding of man's nature apart from Christ.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks
we'll
so much.